Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco. Dish out on the movies. Today I think we are doing a Children of the Corn movie.
This is Children of the Corn 5.
And it actually takes place in corn.
Children of the Corn 5. Field of Terror is the title. It's called Fields of Terror because you can be terrified in these fields.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination of the regular, monstrous influence, or person or monster, plus a cult. And to me, it's more of a cult, or it's more of a cult than the other ones. The other ones were more like about a monster, but I think this one kind of combined two things.
This movie is like the combination between mental retardation and alcohol.
Okay, well, just want to mention some of the notable people in it. David Carradine is in it.
Yeah, for some reason I thought David Arquette was in it, but for some reason, I think the cast, there's a girl with the last name Arquette, and then you have David Carradine, and somehow I got it mixed up.
Yeah, so he's kind of like the quote cult leader.
Yeah.
But he's also kind of a monster. That part was
Safi,
confusing.
don't jump ahead.
Okay, well, anyway, there are also Eva Mendes, and then there was a boy. Now, maybe Marco knows the name of the boy.
But he looks familiar.
He looks very familiar. He's kind of looks like, but it's not him. The guy who was in that Christmas movie where they cancel Christmas. It's Jamie Lee Curtis.
What?
He kind of looks like him. But he also, or it's the same. He looks kind of like the boy who was in that Bryan Cranston show you like so much about the family. But that's not him. It's not him. It's just he has that same kind of haircut and big ears.
Doesn't. False. He looks like the cover of Mad Magazine.
Yeah, he does.
So anyways, this movie starts off... Let's start getting back to the facts, Safi. This movie starts off with one of the worst openings of all time. And we have... There's like a kid, he wanders out in a cornfield, and then he gets fucked up, and he turns into a bad kid. And then they say, a year later, and then they're bad. The kids are bad, and they're all bad, and then they do bad things to people. Like there's these, and I'm just trying to talk like the people who wrote the movie, how I would imagine that they talk, because that's how brain dead this movie is. So there's this guy and a girl, and they drive car. And the guy have sex doll, and he put it on thing in the middle of nowhere for fun.
I'll put it on a signpost.
And then they stop and go in cornfield and get killed. And then there's 4 other friends, and they drive in car.
Well, they're supposed to be meeting them, I guess.
Yeah.
To do what? And go where? I have no idea.
They wanted to go to the middle of nowhere, Nebraska or something. I don't know. They never make that clear.
It was not the same town as it's been, though.
It's some place called
It's 2 words in it.
It was like Dipshit Valley or something. It should have been called fucking Dipshit Valley. So the friends, they go to town, and then they can't. The car break down, and then they go into town, and they can't go into town anymore.
Okay, what happens is that plastic doll thing got off of the signpost and was flying around and flew into their car,
Safi.
It made the guy disoriented. He ran off in the cornfield. So they need a tow.
Don't you
So they
dare.
walk into town to get a tow.
Don't
There's
you-
no tow because the tow truck's broken.
Well, don't you dare go into the nitty gritty of
well,
Children
I just
of
wanted
the
to
Corn
say
5.
what you just said made no sense.
Oh,
so I just wanted to
that's
make-
what it was. That's what it was like. It was like, oh, what the fuck is this shit? What the fuck am I watching here? Like, what is this? Like, who wrote this? Like some sort of a college kid with a brain the size of an acorn. Like, it just, this movie's so bad that it's just so bad. And it's a different kind of bad, because Children of the Corn 4 was bad because it tried something new, and it was too new, it was too radical, and it was too different from the series, and it didn't make any sense. It was stupid. This movie was like a brain dead, formulaic, late 90s Children of the Corn crap movie, and it took no risks. It didn't do anything interesting. The kids were trash. The adults were trash. Everyone was trash. They acted trash. The villain was trash. The kills were trash. Everything about this movie is trash. Instead of calling it Fields of Terror, they should just call it Fields of Trash. Because if you combined all the trash elements, you could probably fill an entire cornfield full of the trash. But Safi said it was good, though. So let's hear what Safi thinks. Because Safi...
Well, it jumped right into it, like he said. But then these strangers that meet up in the middle of nowhere, which happens to be where the Children of the Corn are, or whoever they are, because they still talk about he who walks behind the rose, and they actually said it more than once.
They're obsessed with this fucking monster who can't survive anything. I mean, this monster's so powerful, but it's just been destroyed like 5 times now.
Yeah, it's like a gigantic Michael Myers.
Like,
it's not even a person. It's not even a monster with, like in the one where they were in Chicago, where it was like a big serpent, like a dragon, kind of like, and...
Oh, no, in this one, it's...
This one's just fire. It's green fire.
It's computer effects. Cheap computer effects.
What happened was there's a fire in a silo, and I can't remember what caused it.
And they have to fight fire with fire.
Right.
Which is fucking retarded. And so...
What happens to be that one of the kids, I'll say kids, they're adults really, who were going to meet these two, the two couples. They're going to meet these two people who got murdered in the cornfield by these errant Children of the Corn people. They don't even bother dress like Amish people anymore. They just
dress like kids,
county
like regular kids, kind of like in the 4th one.
Yeah, and
which is stupid.
So anyway, it turns out that one of the one of these people who meets in the middle of nowhere is related to a boy who's with these errant, creepy Children of the Corn wannabes and cult, and so she wants to see him, and so the movie kind of revolves around, because they were going to leave. There's a bus in the morning like at 8 and a bus at night at 8, and that's their only way out of town, because they set their car on fire. So even if they'd gotten a tow,
Safi, stop trying.
Matter.
Stop! Don't do that.
Okay,
let's review the movie.
That's what
because you said
centered around.
Well, let's talk about what the movie is actually centered around, which is bad acting, bad directing, bad location, bad kills, bad everything. I mean, even the sex scene was bad, because there wasn't even any sex scene because they couldn't. Well, I guess they could, because, I don't know, like, it depends. They had this stupid scene where Eva Mendes, and see, this is where the movie's just so brain dead. There's a part where this movie clicks off all the horror cliches. So they go to this abandoned house in the middle of the cornfield, and it has beer, and it has
in the basement,
and it has food, and you can tell the children of the corn left that stuff there to lure them and kill them and whatever. And so, cliche number one, people go into house that isn't theirs because they don't have anywhere else to go and they're fucking stupid.
They should have stayed in town. It would have been safer.
Cliche number, yeah, because Kane Hodder's in town. You're the guy in the bar.
Mm-hmm.
That was Kane Hodder.
Oh.
We met Kane Hodder, Safi.
Oh.
He put me in a chokehold.
Oh.
And you'd be a lot safer with Kane Hodder because he would have been able to put all these children of the corn in a chokehold.
Yeah.
So, cliche number two, they drink beer. But then, of course, cliche number three.
It was Budweiser.
Cliche number three, the final girl, the girl who survives at the end, she refuses to drink any beer because she's a pure person and she won't do anything wrong. And, cliche number 4 or 5, I can't remember. Eva Mendes, she's the slut. She's the fucking the easy girl in the group, because she's not the final girl and because she's not white. Because you could tell, like, they purposefully put the non-white girl as the slutty girl and then the white girl as the final girl. And so Eva Mendes is like, I don't want to be alone tonight. And so then she just sleeps with, like, one of the guys there, like one of the friends, and because she doesn't want to be alone. And then she sleeps with him. It's a terrible scene. It goes by in like 2 seconds. It's one of the worst scenes I've ever seen in film history. It's trash. I've never seen anything like that before. And it just, I hope that, well, the next one, I already know how bad it is, but these movies are so terrible. It's like, I chose not to watch this as a kid, and I think that it was a good decision because, and then what happens next? Like, what cliche happens after that? Like, it just goes on and on and on. Cliche, 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 cliche. This movie has so many cliches. If you drank every time there was a cliche, you'd die. Safi, what do you think? I mean, did you see all that stuff, or you thought it was good?
Well, I
it.
appreciated the fact that it actually took place near corn in the country instead of in town, which, like you said, you explained it that they were trying to do something different, and it was so radically different that didn't work. Well, there was other factors too that made it terrible.
This movie's just brain dead. Like, this movie, it's so cliche and typical and uninteresting. And there were all these times where the kills looked super fake and bad. Like, there was this one time where a kid swung an axe, and I think there was blood on his shirt, but there's no blood on the axe. And it's like, people notice that. Like, you can't just put a weapon on screen and then, oh, look, I killed someone. Like, you can't just do that. That doesn't work. You have to actually do the kill. You actually have to do the effect to make it look realistic. You have to do camera tricks, editing. You don't just put a axe in front of a camera and, oh, look, there's blood on the shirt, so that means it killed someone. Because this movie killed the series. Like, let's be honest, Safi. Last movie was pretty bad.
Yeah.
It was a huge downgrade from part 3, which was like a masterpiece.
I know it.
And part 5 is like,
well, I was beginning to wonder by the end if there was going to be anybody left.
I was going to wonder if I was going to survive because I want to turn it off. I was going to be like, oh, you know what? I don't want to watch it anymore, so bye-bye. But I just thought, whatever, at least I'll survive.
Well, should we talk about what if the girl found her brother? He was there.
There's this whole stupid shit where the stupid fucking final girl finds her stupid brother. Their stupid brothers in a stupid cult. And it's like, who cares? Like, I didn't even care.
He has a wife, and she's pregnant. And this is like a kid. They're kids. And he got her pregnant, and they're considered married. And
what
that actually factored out in the end too.
Well, where does he get any protection? Does he use like corn husks?
Well, I don't think they wanted that, but
that's
weird too.
Yeah.
But what's really strange is here he is. He's a new father, not yet, but I mean they show her she looks pregnant.
Really?
And they want him. What they do is before you reach her, and this wasn't something else you watch. Was it X-Files or something else where they have to sacrifice themselves by the time they're 18 or by a certain age? There has to be a sacrifice among them, or they all sacrifice themselves. I mean, they're actually, by doing that, they're reasoning that, and I guess
that's what's supposed to happen in general, is because once you become 18, you're not pure anymore.
Well, you're not a kid. You can't be pure if you're not a kid.
But then David Carradine is around, and he's like he's the leader of the cult, and David Carradine was fine. Like, you know, his performance didn't take my breath away, but he was.
He did fine, but the problem is, I was just thinking about it. If they all destroy, and what you do is you climb this big silo and you throw yourself in the fire.
I don't want to.
It's a sacrifice. It's like the Aztecs or something. Well, anyway, although it's not exactly. But
I think the people who wrote this movie should throw themselves in the silo.
But the problem, if you can see the problem, is if they all destroy themselves by 18, there won't be anybody left.
But that's not true. They'll just have sex
Except
and have
the baby.
kids.
Yeah, the kids, the little kids.
And then the kids will become kids by the time the kids are 18, and the cycle will just continue because kids are pure. Yeah, but really,
well, they'll be inbred because there's nobody else. Doesn't look like there's any other kids around.
Safi, do you think that he who walks behind the rose has ever heard of inbreeding?
Well, the problem is with inbreeding comes defects that can physical defects.
He who walks behind the rose says you can do whatever you want as long as you're not 18.
Well, I'm just putting too much thinking into it, but the thing is, they have one pregnant girl, and that was it. It was not like every girl there was pregnant, and they were going to repopulate the group.
That's because they're taking their time. They got killing to do.
They don't have enough time. They'll be 18 before, and how do they know when their birthday is? It's almost like
I guess they
would just forget all about that stuff. Of a normal life or whatever.
There were a couple of okay things, I guess. Well, I don't want to give the movie too much credit because it's a piece of shit. The music was okay. Like, I thought that the theme of the movie was good. It was a lot better than Part 2's music and Part 4. The main kid was okay. Like, he wasn't terrible, but I just couldn't take him seriously because, he was just a kid. Like, I liked how in the last movie, even if it was terrible, that the main kid, he stuck out, like he did stick out in terms of you knew that was the leading kid. And then in the third one, well, that kid was a awesome character.
And he was probably as young. But he did a very good job.
Even the Keanu Reeves Jr. from the second one, even he was fine. Even he was fine compared to this. This kid, he could just be any kid. He looks like a kid who sneaks into the kitchen to get extra peanut butter on his sandwiches. Like, he doesn't look like a scary leader of Children of the Corn.
Well,
Safi.
I don't know what to say.
But
He wasn't that. I mean, you could just. In
You
fact,
like
he
the
was so
movie.
easily killed
yeah.
at the end. I mean,
Well, they all are for the most part. I mean, even in part 3,
they have no backbone or strength or anything. Not really.
that's what was kind of good about part 1, was that, Malachi was pretty dangerous, and he wasn't
Yeah.
somebody to fool around with.
Well, people were actually afraid of him.
And then Isaac, you were afraid of him too, because he was very good at talking, and
Sounding evil.
he just seemed powerful. He had a powerful feel to him.
Right.
And this character, the little Cabbage Patch Kid,
Yeah.
he's like a, I don't know, he's like a kid who gets beat up at recess because he stepped in the wrong direction or something. Like,
well,
he's
he
just
reminded
not
me of a sitcom actor. That's what I think.
dopey opey.
And he just doesn't have any. And he was trying. I'm not going to say that he wasn't trying, but he just doesn't fit the part. It's called miscasting. And
Well, this whole movie's miscast. I mean, was there a single good actor besides David Carradine in the whole movie? Well, I mean, Kane Hodder wasn't in it enough. But anyone else, like Eva Mendes, she was trash. She was like,
is she any good anyway? I mean, in anything?
She's like a throwaway actress. She's like a C tier actress, and she came out with this quote now where she said she doesn't want to act anymore because she's put in all these demeaning roles, and it's like, you're put in these throwaway roles because you're a throwaway actress, and like, you're not like a real actress like I don't know, Linda Hamilton from the first one. She had character. Even though she's in Children of the Corn, she still took it seriously. And you're in Children of the Corn 5, and you're just treating it like a joke, and you're treating it like you're acting on your spring break. And then there's this other girl, the final girl. She was boring. She was like typical white bread, Wonder Bread final girl. The two guys were terrible. They were like guys who just walked out of a fraternity, and they're like, we did a movie. We want to be in the movie.
I don't know. I guess it really starts with, what were they all meeting up? What were they all planning on doing? Because there was nothing about her seeing her brother. It was not about that at all. It had nothing to do with that. But what happened was, when they went into town and they were in that bar, wasn't that when this was brought up about he who walks behind the rose, and she heard that, then she knew that her brother might be around there.
I don't know, I was barely paying attention.
But that was it. That was not why they originally intended to be there. And that first couple, they just get sacrificed immediately. They're murdered. Because why?
Because they're in the corn.
And they just said, we don't like trespassers. Like, oh, okay. Even if you accidentally go off the road and get stuck in a ditch, you're still a trespasser. It's not like you wanted to be there.
Well, Safi, I didn't want to be in watching the movie because it's just terrible. I mean, this is definitely the worst one of the series so far.
You think so?
Yeah. Because I'd rather watch part 4. No, I don't know.
I don't know. I think that was it the third one? What was the one that was just really bad? And just the one we just watched, I guess. In
part
town
4.
They got sick. Yeah. To me, that's the worst one.
Well, the thing is that I guess I would rather watch this if I was forced to watch a Children of the Corn. But I do think that part 4 is better technically, like in terms of Naomi Watts is a better actress.
Yeah.
You know, she's not a throwaway actress who just gets cast in like crappy roles. And then the kills were better, the atmosphere was better, the music was not better. But I guess I'd rather watch this one again, even though I wouldn't want to at all. It was just terrible. It was awful.
And
Safi.
in the end, like I said, I almost thought there was going to be no survivors. And I'm like, how are they going to end this movie? Well, should we say how it ends or not?
Well, is this nobody gives a shit how this movie ends, Safi.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
kind of goofy. It's just like, it's almost like normalizing what the whole movie has been abnormal, about abnormal people and abnormal situations and people getting killed. And her brother got killed because he didn't do what he was supposed to do. They wanted him to, because he was going to be 18, they wanted him to sacrifice himself. Well, he wouldn't do it, and so they killed him.
Yeah, he wanted to live.
Yeah, he wanted to leave. He wanted to take his quote wife and have the baby. And she wouldn't go. She goes, they're my family. He's like, oh boy. So he leaves, and they go after him, and they strike him down. Well, they didn't immediately kill him. He wasn't dead yet, because his sister found him.
Yeah, and they have to have the cliche...
The goodbye scene.
The cliche goodbye scene with the cliche person who shouldn't have been in the situation dies tragically. Cliche. I mean, cliche. This movie should have been called Children of the Cliche.
But what happened was, who was it that told? Was it her brother who told her that the only way to defeat this fire, which is odd,
fight fire with fire.
Fight fire with fire. So she
remember Barney, Safi. Remember Barney in the Andy Griffith Show? What do you fight fire with? With fire!
Yeah.
And then Andy's like, no, you fight it with the hose. And he's like, no!
Well, so anyway...
That was funny.
She saw fertilizer in the farm, because when you're on a farm, you use fertilizer for your crops.
I think they should use it to make the script better, because the script's trash.
Well, so anyway, she gathered up that fertilizer, and she carried it up to the top of the silo that was on fire, and she threw it in there on the way. Of course, that kid that we've been talking about, who's kind of miscast. He's like a sitcom character.
Carrot Top.
They fought, and she knocked him in there, and so he died real fast. Didn't take much at all, because he was really, I mean, she was older than him, and she could knock his block off without his little henchman kids, who were already picked off and dead by her, I think. Anyway, and so she throws it in there, defeats the fire. It just, to me, that in itself sounds so ridiculous.
You just said she defeated the fire.
That's what it was. It was all it was fire in a silo, and it turned green. And it could burst out, and these firefighters are going to put out the fire. They killed them. Killed them.
Well, what's weird about that is that, fire is an enemy of cornfields, and you'd think that he who walks behind the rows wouldn't want to be something that would kill the great corn. Like, why would he who walks behind the rows want to put the corn in danger? If he who walks behind, because that's his name. I mean, he walks behind the rows. How can he walk behind a row of corn if he sets it on fire?
Well, it wasn't on fire. This was in a silo.
Why would he who walks behind the rows want the chance? And how could you even call him he who walks behind the rows if he's fire? Well,
when she threw that, I would say a potential bomb in there, she closed the latch, and so it exploded within the silo, and didn't affect anything on the outside.
Well, no, the real ending of the movie. Well, I will say this: I did like a little thing where the brother gives the sister a book, and he scribbles in it, and he writes a message saying that he wants help.
But it was a code.
I thought that was cool a little bit. Not really, though, because the movie's trash. And then the movie ends with, you see the girl who had the baby, and they're like, oh, we don't care if it's your baby. You're not old enough to have a baby, so
I know.
fuck off.
I don't like that.
And so then they drag her away from her own child, like the immigrants in 2023. Right, Safi?
I don't know what you're talking about now.
You know when they separate the families and they're like, no, you're not allowed to have those.
Oh.
And like that's what it felt like. It just felt so retarded. Like, wait a second, there's tons of people in real life who are 16 and they have a child. Like in my school, we had this bitch who was in my acting class. And, you could tell the type of person she was. And so a year later, she had a child. And she was carrying her stupid baby around in school. And I had a class with the stupid bitch who carried her stupid baby around school. And she was in the psychology class. And she interrupted us watching a movie. And she would, come in late. And but the point is that there's a lot of teenagers who've had kids before.
And so it's not an unknown thing.
It's weird how it's like, oh, she's not old enough, so fuck off.
So the sister comes there and she is going to take the baby.
And then we see that the baby is Rosemary's baby, and it's got its eyes glow.
Oh yeah, that's
and then
right.
The movie ends with the glowing eyes.
So you can see that that's going to encourage them to make a continuation. In other words, a sequel.
Yeah, I'd like to encourage them to just throw the script in the trash.
What was the baby's name? I don't think I ever heard that.
Well, I think you just call it Rosemary. Rosemary's baby.
I don't know. It was a boy, I think.
I think the one in Rosemary's Baby was a boy, too.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, suck on that, Safi. So this movie, are you done with Safi's story time hour in terms of the movie?
I don't know what else. There's nothing else to say about it.
You never really said anything about the movie, though.
Well, there's nothing to say. It's just there's a lot of action. It goes right into it. But the thing is, there's all these. This is the same old story. The story is convoluted. In other words, I don't know why these people would be meeting, and they're young people. They belong in the city, meeting for drinks and having a party and going to work, and they're this whole thing where they're meeting in the middle of nowhere. We never heard why they were there, and she was not there to see her brother. She didn't know her brother was there. She didn't know her brother was there until they had to go to town to look for a tow truck. And that's when she heard this thing about he who is behind the corn or walks behind the corn or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, bing, 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 something lights up in her head. And she goes, oh my God, my brother could be here. Because she knew that he had joined the people who followed he who walks behind the corn. And they told them, the people in town told them there was this kind of a cult group living out there at this place. And so she was thinking that he was there.
And that's stupid, too, because it takes away all the danger. It's like, if this cult is just there and people know about it, then they're not really that scary at all.
No, they just accept them being there, I guess.
There's probably... You should really make a video called How to Make a Good Children of the Corn movie, because I think that this movie breaks rules on how to do that. I think this whole thing with possession is bad because you're taking away the fact that this movie is supposed to be about kids that are evil kids. It's not supposed to be about somebody who's possessed. If I can remember correctly, in the first Children of the Corn, Isaac doesn't get possessed until the very end.
Right.
Like, he gets possessed at the end, and then he kills Malachi, and then he dies. That's what happens in that movie. And that was just so much better. And then in the third movie, even though he was possessed the whole time, they didn't make it about him being possessed. They made it like he was a kid. In part 2, they made it about the possession. It sucked. In part 4, he was a ghost child. That sucked. So I think it's a key to focus on the fact that these are evil kids, not like kids who are possessed, and so their functions are taken away. Like, what's scary, like, if they're possessed? Like, if they're possessed, then it's kind of like, oh, let's get them unpossessed, like, really fast. Like, that's the story.
Well, that could be. Because that's true, everything you're saying about the possession. That either they don't know how to handle the story when it's like that, or it just doesn't fit with the story like that.
Well, it's like, why do they have to do that at all? Like, why can't they just have a kid who's scary in the cornfield? Like, that's the fucking story. Why can't they get the story right? Well, they can't get it right because they're trash. So, Safi, what would you rate Children of the Corn 5 in terms of food?
Well, last night I rated that movie with these gummy bears that are gross, and I still feel the same way. They're still gross the second day, and I want to throw them in the trash because I'm not going to eat them. This movie, it moved along. It did have some semblance of a story, but it was very, like, the initial part, like I said, what are they doing there? What were they doing there to begin with? And there was nothing. If they said why they were there, I never heard it. And to me, that's bad to start out because you're almost dooming the movie. But I don't know. We had this meal last night, and it didn't have any corn in it, but it had chicken and rice, and it was arroz con pollo, which means rice with chicken. And it's a Mexican or Spanish type of meal. It has, spices, spicy, hot spices. And it was just kind of, you have these intentions, and then you put the meal together, and it doesn't turn out exactly the way it should, and in fact, it turns out to be mush.
Yeah.
The rice is mush.
It was mushy, overcooked crap.
And the chicken, the chicken pieces, if you want to think of like David Carradine, because he was always very professional.
He's not meaty enough.
But he's not even in there. He actually doesn't have that big of a part.
Yeah.
The girl...
Unfortunately.
Probably the girl, the one in the end.
Yeah, the final
survives.
girl. She's the final girl.
She has more of a part than he does.
That's the final girl, Safi.
Well, yeah, that's funny that because Marcos mentioned that thing about the final girl, which I've never heard of.
That's the boring girl who gets to survive because she's boring. And so, therefore, she's a good person. Unlike the bad people who have sex and drink beer.
But
I like beer.
You don't. You don't like beer at all.
No.
And I don't drink,
no.
Anyway.
Gross.
It just doesn't matter. But anyway,
I like corn.
I think I'd equivalize that meal to the movie because it's just like, I don't know. Is there such a thing? I guess the first one was the perfect Children of the Corn movie.
No, the third one was.
Okay.
The third and the first one. Like, both of those, if you combine them, you watch that one and then you watch the other, then you have the perfect one.
It just kind of freaks me out that they couldn't figure out how to come up with the reason why. I mean, it bugs me. Because to me, you don't have these 4 vibrant young people going to the middle of nowhere because it just is antithetical to being. You just don't do it. They're not there to see birds. They're not there to do archaeology. They're not there. And like I said, she didn't know her brother was there initially. They were not there to meet the brother. They were there to do something else. That's never brought up, and it just, to me, that kind of, it almost steers the whole movie off of the road and into the ditch, like what happened with their car. And I just don't understand why they could not come up with something. I mean, you're talking about, I know Stephen King wrote the original
short story,
but you're talking about what, a screenwriter. So a screenwriter or more than one writer could not come up with, I mean, something simple. Why is it so hard? And I just don't understand.
That's the thing, is that you can tell from this movie that they didn't think it was hard. They thought it was very easy because they can just put a formula together, a formulaic.
But they're missing part of the formula. It's almost like they're making a concoction, which is the movie, and they forget to put salt in it or something when they needed salt, or they forget to put, let's say, a lime, the juice of or lemon, or they forget, like they're making a cookie and you don't put in baking soda, or you make biscuits, you don't put in the baking powder. Well, that makes the movie screwed up. I mean, they screwed it up from the very beginning, and so therefore it's not going to turn out. I guess it turned out in terms of the way they wanted it to go, but it was like what Marco said, it was so full of cliches, and because you've already gone off the road, so now it's almost like you can equivalize it to being in the cornfield. And I tell you, I've done archaeology, and you can get lost in those cornfields, especially if they go on, and there's acres and acres of, you don't pay attention to where you've been going, you can get lost. And that's what it was like. The movie gets lost with this stupid stuff that they're talking about. And it's not even, the monster is a fire in a silo? I mean, that's bizarre. And then it's really a cult. But they want to destroy themselves. At 18, there's not going to be anybody left.
But you like the movie, Safi.
Well,
yeah, that's what when you came in here, you said I liked it.
I guess I like it because it's bad, but it's short. It doesn't go on forever like they're beating a dead horse. They stop it. It ends. It's over. Your misery is done. So go ahead, Marco. What kind of review did you give it?
Well, I would give this, we used to have Sloppy Joes when I was a child. We don't have them anymore because there's just, it seems like it's hard to find a recipe for Sloppy Joes. Yeah. Like, for some reason, you think about what a Sloppy Joe should taste like, but it's hard to find a recipe that tastes good. Like, for the most part, all the Sloppy Joe recipes are gross. They have all the same gross elements, like chopped up vegetables, like that are these huge chunks, carrot, onion.
Yeah, carrots and peppers. And
it's so gross.
To me, that's not a Sloppy Joe.
There's this kind of Sloppy Joe that we've had the past couple of years that's so disgusting, and it's like they think that, oh, look, we're making a Sloppy Joe, and then they're not. And it's like, this is an insult to real Sloppy Joes. And it's like this brainless food, like, oh, look, I'm going to throw some tomato, beef, and vegetables in a pot, and then that's going to be food. Like, that's just, you have to make a good recipe. You have, with the right instructions and ingredients, and it seems like there's a lot of Sloppy Joe recipes, just like there's a lot of bad movies like this one, where they think they're making something good, and it's not.
No. Yeah. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and become one of our subscribers, so you can add, well, you can do it anyway. We'd like to hear some feedback, some commentary not just about how we're doing, whether it's good or bad, but what you think of the movie, because that's really basically what we're trying to do. We want movies, especially horror movies, to be as good as they can be. We're getting tired of the people taking shortcuts, of the writing. It's like, sometimes I get really tired and I'm watching something, I just pass out asleep. And that's what the writers seem to do. They pass out asleep and then they wake up and they finish it and they forget that there's like holes all the way through the story, and when you look at it as a movie, that there's so many plot holes, it just is terrible. It doesn't work. And that's what we are aiming, not as just to criticize. We know that things can be better, and we want them to be better. Meaning a better story, good acting, and the effects, not to rely so heavily on computer-generated effects, and to put effort into the whole project and make it cohesive. And look at like what they did with the Maverick movie, the Top Gun movie, sorry. What they did was, the first one was crappy, really full of crap. And they looked at the guy who directed the second one, the one that came out with Tom Cruise, they looked back, they thought, oh my God, we did this was done, it's not so good, oh my God. And they went and they changed everything. They made a very tight, good movie.
The problem is, the problem is a part of a bigger problem, which is that a lot of people don't respect horror. And it's because of things like, the shitty Oscars. They don't give any awards to horror, and they pretend like horror movies don't exist. And so you have all these people, they disrespect horror, and they don't take it seriously. And so then that leads to, you can see it in the scripts. Like, I could see at least in parts 1, 2, and 3 that they did respect the horror genre, and they respected, like, they were trying. And it seemed like they just, part 2 they fell short. In this movie, you can feel it was made by a bunch of dipshit executives who probably sexually assaulted someone one time or other. And I'm just kidding. But they're stupid. They're idiots. They don't know how to make movies because they don't respect horror. They just think like, oh, horror is a crappy genre for crappy people. You can just make these garbage movies and people will like it. And unfortunately, they are correct. And you'll have a lot of people defending these bad movies and saying, oh, that's really good.
Well, they do that with Marvel movies too. And
look where that's gotten the Children of the Corn movies.
Yeah.
To nowadays. And I don't even want to mention the newest Children of the Corn, like, I can't wait to get to that one.
So anyway, like I said, give it a thumbs up if you want to, and become one of our subscribers so you can add your commentary to the review, which both Marco and I would really appreciate it. So goodbye, everybody.
Well, tomorrow you will be doing Monk Season 6 review.
Oh, no, I will not do it tomorrow. I'll do it in 2 days. You can't just tell me tomorrow I'm going to do the review.
You're going to be doing
when it's
Children
9
of the
o'clock
Corn.
at night. We haven't even had our dinner. Now give me a break.
And you're going to be doing Children of the Corn 666 Isaac's Return.
Oh boy, well, I'll do that.
Bye-bye.
Bye.